Yeah, hey, where are you now? You're on the Verizon still? Yanko. Okay, fine. You're on the pyramid. Okay, fine, no problem. Okay, fine. The orange are ready. Okay, fine. We said originally 9:25.
מכתב לדוד שרמניאל כי חסיסי בך אמרת לאדוני אלוהים אתה טויבסי בעל עליך לקדושים אשר בארץ המה ואדירי כל חפצי בם יבוא הצבויסה מחר מהרו בעל הסיכנס קיים אידם ובעל עשר שמויסה מעל ספרסוי אדוני מנוס חלקי וחויסי אתה תומך גוירו לי חבלים נפלו לי בנימים אף נחלות שפרו עלי אברך אדוני אשר יעצני אף לילות יסרוני חיליוסי שיביסי אדוני לנגדי סמית כי מימיני בעל אמית לכן שמח ליבי ויגל כבודי אף בשרי ישכון לבטח כי לא יסעזוב נפשי לשאול, לא יסיתן חסידך לרוי שוחס. Toidieni oire chayim sevas mochois es ponecho nihimois bimincho netzach. Rabbi Avraham Armistein.
Heint in der Torah hat man gelernt, wenn ifkadeto ki yipoket moishovecho. Wird dann gesagt von David HaMelech, wird nicht sein, ki yipoket moishovecho, wird bleiben ein leidiger Platz. Der Rosh Yeshiva, mein beliebter Schwager Reb Moti, ki yipoket moishovecho, dein Platz wird bleiben ledig. Nicht da, wer soll viel neuer Platz. Das ist nicht der Moshe von der Rosh Yeshiva-Schaft. Das ist der Moshe von der Alte, was hat verpflanzt Novardok Yeshivas über die ganze Welt. Zendliche Yeshivas. Das ist der Platz von seinen Seiden, Reb Avraham Jofen, was noch im Ersten Weltkrieg hat Zerika weggestellt, neue Yeshivas in Polen, in andere Orte. Und bei ihm ist Dank seine Arbeit zu spreiten, Bais Yosef Yeshivas, Bais Yosef gekommen, euch in Erz Yisrael, was der Stempel von Bais Yosef durch das Stapler und der Chaznisch ist geblieben von der größten Roshim in Erz Yisrael bis zum heutigen Tag. Und Rabbi Avraham Jofen hat später weggestellt Bais Yosef da in Amerika. Und sein Tate mit seinem eluischen Kopf, mit seinem Geäunis, mit seinem Bekies, Bechol Chadre Torah, hat weggestellt Bais Yosef als Amokim. Nicht Stamm Amokim Torah, nur Amokim von Torah auf den größten Eufen und auf den choschefsten Eufen. Zu dem Moshe ist gekommen der Nifte und wunderliche Sachen hat aufgetan. Go junger Heid, noch vor der Chassene, hat weggestellt a Keulel, le Shemel Teferes, a Keulel von der größten Kep von jener Zeit. Und später weggestellt a Yeshiva do, aufgestellt a neue Eulam von Bochem, von Emes Bnei Torah. Und weggelegt eine ganz neue Stege, als Bochem, wenn sie kommen zurück von Erz Yisrael, darf nicht gehen zu die größeren Yeshivas, nur sie können da bleiben und da auswachsen in Torah, in ihre Shemayim, auf den schönsten Eufen. Das ist der Moshe von der Rosh Yeshiva. Das hat aufgetan. Aber wer ist gewesen der Mensch? Es ist nicht nur eine Frage von der Moshe, aber der Mensch allein. Gewesen in gewisse Sachen nach Hadbedore. Nicht nur sein Kopf, sein gewaltige Ideas, seine Asmode, seine Havas-Teure. Das ist er sich weggegeben von der Yeshiva. Viele, wenn er nicht gewesen gesund, hat noch alles nur gesorgt für die Yeshiva. Ich habe gesehen, dass Simcha seine einmal mir geschmust vor Pesach und er erzählt, was er getan für alle junge Leute von der Keulel, als sie sollen haben ein Pesach beravches. Es gab also Simcha in dem. Wenn eine extra Sache. Aber er hat gerade Simcha mit dem, was er weiß, dass er zweiten hat, was er darf. Der Simcha, was er gerade mit seiner Chavrusses, er hat nicht gesucht, zu haben die Gräste mit Zionim für Chavrusses. Er hat gesagt, ich darf haben eine Chavrusse, was soll mich halten fest bei der Gemorre, nicht herumlaufen, nur sitzen, schon nacheinander. Das hat er gesucht in der Chavrusse. Der Chies, was er hat gehabt, von dem, was er da weggestellt, lernen Leute amolige Steiger ki poked moshevecha. But there's much more. There's much, much more to the person. He was very unique. You know, if you talk to him in learning, you thought he's probably somebody who's never stepped outside the Bais Medrash. But if you talk to him about an investment, you were sure he had an MBA from one or other of the most prestigious business schools. If you talk to him about the world of ideas, you assumed he had a PhD from somewhere or other that he'd managed to grab hold of on the side. If you talked to him about what was going on in the community, you were sure that he must have endless hours to listen to people and their troubles and their concerns, because he knew all that was going on. You don't find people who have all of these qualities. Another uniqueness, you know, apart from having the Messiris of the splendor of Novardok and its Mekoimes HaTorah, he was also the heir to Rebbe Sheyichas. He was an Einekel of Reb Meirel Premishlana. Reb Meirel said about this week's Parsha, Vayehav Yitzchak es Esav ki tzayid befiv. How could it be that Yitzchak, because tzayid befiv, Yitzchak Avinu should fall for such petty things that he should ask Shailis, and it convinced him that Esav is somehow a great man? Said Reb Meirel, his Rebbe, Reb Yitzchak Pratshina, would tell over from his Rebbe, the Ber Maim Chaim, that the Ber Maim Chaim had a child who didn't conduct himself the way his father would have wanted. And the Ber Maim Chaim would nevertheless take care of him, provide for him everything that he needed. And every morning before davening, the Ber Maim Chaim would start out by saying, Rebbeinu Shalom, I have a son who's not doing things the right way, but I still take care of him. I know that we don't always do everything the right way in your eyes, but please still take care of us and provide for us. Vayehav Yitzchak es Esav ki tzayid befiv. Yitzchak loved Esav, and he gave to Esav because he said, this is tzayid befiv, the fact that I take care of everyone, even those who are not worthy. That gives me an argument to the Rebbeinu Shalom. If you saw how Reb Mordechai used to take care of all Talmidim, how he had a soft ear for everybody in their troubles, how he loved to make a shidduch for somebody, for anybody who was alone. He couldn't stand the thought that somebody was neglected and not taken care of. Ki tzayid befiv, that is part of the greatness that he brings with him. I don't know how he found time for all these disparate aspects of his life. I don't know how he had time for all the many things that he did and for all his interests. I don't know how he had time to handle the financial burden of the yeshiva and the learning of the yeshiva and the individuals. I don't know where there were hours in the day for all of it. But miraculously he did. And I have no doubt that he goes now in front of the Kisei HaKoved, not only with his marvelous achievements for the yeshiva, and really not only preserving it, but bringing it back to life twice over, but he also brings all the people whom he cared for, whom he looked after. He had a very hard time in these last years of illness. His wife was at his side really day and night, and she was superhuman in taking care and in understanding him even when it was hard for him to speak. And his children and grandchildren were utterly devoted to him, They loved him with a very human, caring way and understood him, and he was really surrounded by this level of care and understanding all the years. I'm certain that he will be Melitz Yosha for his mishpacha, for all of us, for the Bnei Yeshiva whom he loved so dearly, for all of Klal Yisrael whom he loved and cared for, and bring us a soif v'keitz l'chol tzareseinu tchila v'rosh lepidyon nafshenu, and the Mocha Hashem Elokim dima me'al kol ponim v'noimo amen.
Harav Naftali Yeager.
The family just asked me to say a few words. We all know Matcha's Ga'onis, Matcha's Aluyas, but he was a Chaver Tov, Emisdik a Chaver Tov. As Rambam says, real Talmud Chacham is a real Chaver. He's a person that cared about others, made you feel good. Would always get a call from him, especially before Yom Tov, to talk, to say over beautiful Divrei Torah. Remember how many times he said to me, the Gemara, I know him, Dvar Shemeis, Lefnei Meis, Dvar Shemeis, how the Gemara tells us that you drink that. He says, you know, Chazal say that Torah is likened to Yayin. Just like the Gemara says, Portas Misatzoyet, Tuva is Migra Garu. If you learn a little Torah, he would always say, it's Misatzoyet, you feel satiated, you feel full, but you learn a lot, you learn, you want more, you want more. Matcho was a person, all he wanted to was more Torah, more Habatzas Torah. Chiddush Rim, this week's parsha, the Sfasem is quotes from the Chiddush Rim, V'yitein l'cha Elokim, V'yitein l'cha Elokim, Elokim is Lashon Din. Rashi says, Bedin, Imroihu L'kabel Bedin, but V'yitein is Lashon Matana, the Chiddush Rim, and I say, Sukkot, when I came to visit, the Rebbe Zayn Gesund was sitting there, and I mentioned something about the Chiddush Rim of Mordechai. Gave a gutta cup. I said, Rebbetzin, only an Eloi like of Mordechai can say in a Veltz Eloi, a gutta cup. The person who understood what the genius really is. Chiddush Rim says, like Yagati umatzasi, a person says, Me'agei himself, matzasi becomes a mitzia, the Rebbeinu Shem gives you much more. He did so much, and the Rebbeinu Shem gave him so much, such wonderful children, such a wonderful yeshiva. When we in the 5 towns, we had hurricane, I remember it was called Sandy, and I think we had no electricity, no heat, nothing. And I spent a week here by my sister, and I came here to learn every day how the love of Torah, the love of the Talmidim, the love of helping others, the love of Torah. We were so excited about Torah, so excited about everything that was Marbitz Torah. How he would say, he would tell the Rebbetzins, Zayn Gesund, that to have Bochum over the Shabbos, because that's going to build the yeshiva, to make a kesher. He made a kesher, he knew what it is. The Talmidei Chachamim, that Baruch Hashem, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave them good heads, and they learned. But Mordechai had a heart to match that mind, a heart that was so magnanimous, so big, so wonderful, a real Chaver Tov. And I'll miss him very much, really a person that gave me so much. He listened to me, he helped many things by us in yeshiva. The Rebbetzin, Zayn Gesund, should have sinachas from all the wonderful children, grandchildren, and children should be a Melitz Yosha, and we should see much simcha. Misha Olma Loi Lamadai Yom Atzar Seinu Dai.
Harav Mordechai Tendler. Chazal in Sanhedrin Memvav and Bais are choker with a spade yikar de chaya or yikar de shchiva. I'll talk initially from both perspectives. Instead yikar de shchiva. My shvager Hagon Rav Mordechai Zatzal was a yachid b'minam in many respects. B'tziraso, he was renowned as a Lilui. There's still a part of the legend of Chaim Berlin and Ner Yisrael are some of his unique actions. But he grew to be a Gaon. Not every Lilui grows to be a Gaon. When I would go to my shver the early years of our marriage, and Mordechai would be there also, the risk of the rice was so fierce. When my shviga would come in and say she's calling the police. And a good part of the Torah we say at the Seder every year, our Harav from Rav Mordechai. We had the privilege that he bought a house, a summer home, in our Kehillah, and for 25 years we spent the summers together. We had myriad conversations, and a lot of them are recorded in some of my Sfarim, the Maseres Moshes. But in addition to his gaonus, was also his uniqueness in chesed. The first time I met him, he came to interview me for a shidduch with his sister without telling me that he was coming for that purpose. I was learning with Gershon, Spititsky, and Tveres Yerushalayim. And I never met him before. He comes over, starts talking to me, and we had a pleasant but fierce disagreement about some points in halacha. And he left. I commented to Gershon that definitely an intelligent person and very polite. And that maintained itself. Instead of getting me nervous and saying he's interviewing for a shidduch, he just came to nudge me. I've had others come by for similar things. When his brother Reb Aaron Zatzal was nifter, he became like the surrogate father for Reb Aaron's children. In every little thing, they contacted him. He was involved with their shidduchim, the finances. He literally adopted the whole family. And he did great chesed for our family also. He was a major presence in arranging for my daughter's chasanas. And even prior to my son's first date, he came by to give him dating advice and bought him an Ursulenu hat, which was like a big yichus for us. He gave not only a series from his time, as my grandfather has one of his drushes, but with great kishronos and great sensitivity. A series of his kishronos he gave to chesed also. In Kehelas Perikid Bais Pasuk Hey it says, Chol Chadam Beis Olamo V'savu B'shuk HaSoftim. Sefurna points out that that's an eitzah, how to know the true mahus of a person. Listen to what others are saying about him. Malakit b'yachad, the common denominators, and that probably would give you a good estimate of who the person was. So since the B'tira on Friday, I've been doing that. promoted members of the family. And a couple of ha'aris I would mention. Today's parsha, Perek Chafei, Pasuk of Gimel, says, "V'yigdul ha'na'arim, Yaakov ishtam Yosef v'holam." Medrash Rabbah, parsha Samach Tes, Medrash Yud, it says, "Mashal to a chadas that has a wonderful smell." That's Yosef v'holam. I found it enigmatic. You want to give a mashal for a person who's Yosef v'holam, a masmed atzim. He smells like a flower. There should be some more appropriate mashal. My shver considered the Nitziv to be his Rebbe, though he never saw the Nitziv. He accepted myriad times. The Rebbe, the Nitziv. The Nitziv in Meit of Shir says that Reach represents Chesed. And Yaakov Avinu, his Torah was Chesed. It was pleasant, it was gentle, it was sweet. And my shvagas was similar. With all his Luyishkeit and Gaoniskeit, didn't talk a kabbalah daiti. I had myriad disagreements with him. Extremely pleasant and gentle, full of Musar, full of hadrach of Musar, as apropos for Shalshelis and Novardok. Next week's parsha. Sulamus of Arts of Rosh Mekia Hashmaima. It's my shver. The coat. Shver would quote the Rekanti that this was just a nevuah to Yaakov Avinu, but every person's given a tzulah mitzvah, Rosh Megia Hashmaima, and Hashem is mitzvah the person to climb and never stop climbing, and you can never reach the top. As high as you go, it's even above you, and you can't plateau. It's a ladder. If you plateau, you fall off. You climb or you fall off. And my shvaga took that as a dictate for his life, constantly climbing higher and higher. Discernible in his actions and his orientation and his striving for greatness. Harav, you should be zocheh b'karev to the fulfillment of the nevuah. Bilmos l'netzach machashem dimah kolpon.
What does one say when a friend, a brother that one grew up with since we were both in our early teens in Koil Goraya of Chaim Berlin. We were both there. I remember my first maga with him, first meeting of him. We were learning Gid Anosha, and I asked the kasha. I thought it was a very good kasha, Gid Anosha. He didn't say a teretz. He showed me that I made a toys and pshat. He showed me that I made a toys and pshat. He was right. And his sense of pshat was always so strong. And through that he was mechadish, chedushim nechayim b'Torah. Except for a couple of years where he was in Eretz Yisrael, we have been buddies, friends for all our lives. For all our lives. In this week's parsha, we read that Yitzchak, the name of the city was Beersheva Arayom Hazeh, which Yitzchak named it that way. And if we read the psukim by Avram, it said Avram named it Beersheva. The Even Ezra stellt sich, Rashi doesn't stellt sich, the Even Ezra stellt sich. Lefi Anira, there are two things. We know that the Midas HaChesed is a Midah, the creative force. That is what creates, that's what's Baira, Olam Chesed Yiboneh. Olam Chesed Yiboneh. The Midas Hadin is the Midah that preserves. That gives a miskeres, and it's the Midah that preserves. Avram called the city Beersheva. He was the Mechadish. Avram was the Balachesed. He was the man of creation. Man of creation. The man that was, Yitzchak was Amidas Adin. He was the man of preservation. Al Kain, it's called Beersheva Ad HaYom Hazeh. Ad HaYom Hazeh. When Yaakov came, when was given the psura that Yosef is alive, he came and he was Zeveach. He was Zeveach. When he was in Beersheva again, he was a Zeveach L'Kei of Yitzchak. Rashi says, because one is Mechuyev in Kibbut Aviv, Yosef Kibbut Aviv. What was that? What was that? Yankov came, they were going down to Mitzrayim. He saw that there's a kiyum to Yud Beis Shvatim. And he also saw that we're becoming an Ummah in Mitzrayim. Becoming an Ummah in Mitzrayim. So he could have concentrated on the point of the preservation of what was before Yud Beis Shvatim, or he could have talked about the creation of the full Klal Yisrael that happened in Mitzrayim. He talked about the preservation of Yud Beis Shvatim, because he's mechuyev in Kibbut Av Yosef and Kibbut Av Yosef. Reb Mordechai, Agoyin, Agadol, Reb Mordechai, did both. He was a man of tremendous creative ability, creative in learning, creative in the chesed, and creative in his darkei achinuch, and how he believed to run a yeshiva and what to do with the yeshiva. He was tremendously creative, but at the same thing, he was with kanoyis, keeping the Messiah of his father, Hagoyin Agadol, Chaim, his grandfather Morin Agadol, Hagoyin Agadol, Rabbi Avram, and Rabban Shal Yisrael, his Zayda, the Alter from Novardok. He did both at the same time. Avram's Beersheva, the creative force, the Midas HaChesed, and Yitzchak's Beersheva, the Midah of preservation, of creating a miskeres and preservation, and preserving the Yeshivas of Novardok, the Yeshivas of Novardok. What's there to say? It's a loss. Chaval al Avdin with the Lo Mishtach. In the name of the Tzibur, I would like to ask B'nai v'Talmidai, the Rosh Yeshiva, Hagoyin, Reb Moshe, Shlita, should should he say a few words?
Pasuk says in Shir Hashirim, Matzuni Hashoimrim Hasoivim Be'ir, Kuni Tzauni, Nasu is Redide Me'alai Shomer HaChoimes. Rashi is Masber, when Nebuchadnezzar and his armies were machriv the Beis Hamikdash, lin koim nikmasei shel makoim. We weren't only beaten and battered, hikuni ptsauni, it was also nasu redidai meolai. Our mantle of protection, our cloak of protection was removed from us. Rashi says, Nasus redide meolai, this is the Beis Hamikdash. Shomer HaChoimes refers to Malachi Ashoris, who was Shomer the Choimes of the Beis Hamikdash. Shenemar al Choimesayach Yerushalayim, Heim Hetzitu Bo Yisahar. Even our protectors turned against us. What does Knesset Yisrael have to say in response to these terrible makas, to these terrible Yisurim that the Rebbeinu Shalom has put on us? Shpat Yeschen B'nais Yerushalayim Im Timtzu Es Doidi Ma Tagidu Loi Shechoy L'Asavoni. How is it possible that our response to such tremendous tragedy is Shechoy L'Asavoni? Abba Mori, Harini Mekaparos Mishkavoy. He taught us the answer through all of the Kaishi and all of the Yisurim that he went through the last few years. The man who had an iron will, the one we could always rely on. You carried us in Ruchnias and in Gashmias, and when you went through these terrible Yisurim that took your body and your mind, anybody who would meet you, especially to us, the family, what was it that you were talking about? What should we learn in Yeshiva next month? Did you talk to Reb Tzvi about learning with me b'chavrusa? We all knew he wasn't coming back to Yeshiva. Then as things started to get worse, Moshe, I don't remember the cheshbon anymore. I can't remember what I learned. His whole ratzin, his whole tshuka, his whole ava mitoicha, when everything was taken away from him. All he wanted to do was to be able to come back to the Beis Medrash, fight with us in learning. Talk about building the yeshiva. He taught us the Yeshivas, saying good svar and learning. Saroch v'talmidei chachamim. Everybody knows how much he treasured just gathering any Talmud Chacham in the neighborhood that they should come learn in the yeshiva. He almost had a trophy case, gathering anybody who knew how to say a good svar, let them come learn by us. Chesed that he did with Talmidei Chachamim, to the light, with Bachrim in the yeshiva. There's one story my mother Yibod L'chaim reminded me when my father had his first stroke. It was Erev Pesach, and he's in the ambulance about to be taken to the hospital. He tells my mother, quick, bring my checkbook. It's before Yontif. A lot of younger light are relying on me. Make sure you take it with us, that I can make sure they have what they need for Yontif. My father was known, by my Yeshivas, he was known for his unbelievable kishrin. He certainly was an unbelievable Baal Kishrin, but what was so unique about him, besides for his tfisa, his quickness, he was incredibly insightful. He was always able to be nichnes lo'umka shel davar. He understood right away what was an important point, both in learning and in life. That's why people always came to him for advice. He knew right away what was important and what wasn't important. Those who saw him b'takvai remember the tremendous rischa deiraisa that he had. He would take his learning so personally. It was his chavrusa for 15 years. Anybody who was in the Beis Medrash during those times remember the way we would fight with each other. Couldn't run away from him. He would chase after me, limping, screaming, krumas svara, retzda. Everything was so important to him that you got it right. Able to teach us this chashivas for yashrus and learning, for gladkeit. Remember when he was preparing the shiurim, he would pace back and forth, up and down East 18th for hours, just walking back and forth, thinking and learning, and then he'd come and he'd tell us over what he said, and we'd fight with him. Such an incredible rischa deiraisa. He also took an amazing achrayus for his children, making sure that they had this haracha for limud Torah, making sure they had haracha for talmidei chachamim, for gemilas chasadim, for achnasas orchim. He made sure we all would only do shidduchim with families that had the same values, making sure we never lacked for anything. Thank you, Abba. Agon Reb Naftali mentioned, the Gemara says, in Oimrim b'fnei ameis el dvarim shel meis. Rather, the pashtus is, the Reb Naftali explained it, we say over the divrei Torah of the meis. Sforim is mavur. It's an Indian of saying over Ki'ilu the meis himself is here b'fanenu telling us what he would have said. I know if my father would be here, I think his strongest midah of all of his midas is the midah of hakaras hatov. he was here, he would say, "Thank you, Ima." For dropping everything to care for me night and day. I know I wasn't the easiest patient, but through everything, you were there for me, you cared for me. You were nights and days alone in the hospital, running to doctors, arranging nurses and insurance and people to come to the house. I know you're a very regimented and private person, and this was completely against your nature. But you did such amazing things, and your devotion was incredible. Also, I think you would thank all of the medical professionals who were working so tirelessly to keep him alive and to keep him comfortable at home. Night and day, they would stop in to check on him, to help, to see if we needed anything. Thank you all so much. To his children and grandchildren and the rest of the family who always came and visited to spend time, even though it was so hard to see him, so diminished. Your concern and your love and devotion meant so much. I have so much nachas from all of you. And to all my friends who were such a big part of my life, who I was so close to, who I always relied on, and they could rely on me. They helped support the vision and the growth of the yeshiva. Thank you so much. To all the Talmidim, the devotion that I had to you, it could be felt in return. And thank you for giving my father the opportunity to give and to receive. Special thank you to Ronaldo. Special thank you to Ronaldo, who used to bring me around to visit the yeshiva, taking me all over to visit people, and for putting up with me, banging around at night, always uncomfortable. Stayed for months and months just at my father's side, taking amazing care of him. And thank you to all of you who have come. To give me this covered achron. I just want to be mevakesh mechila. I certainly wasn't mechabed you the way I should have been. I ask you mevakesh rachamim for Ima and for children, grandchildren, Toich, Shar Amchi Yisrael, sorrows that Klal Yisrael is going through that you worried about so much in Eretz Yisrael. Bila Movis Lanetzach Machash and Kim Dem Malko upon him.
Harav Chaim Kidowitz.
first met with Mordechai, like Yankov said, when they came to Guraye. He was a young bacher. Must be about 1965 or 66. I'm not sure exactly which year. One of those years. It was a long time ago. It's almost 60 years ago. And I had heard later, and I remember that's who we learned with. I had learned later that the Shiva of Hutnes Atzal told his father, going to Yankov, that he set up his son with his best younger man, of Yosef Rabinowitz, or sein gesund. He got him the best chavrusa possible. He was already Edula going. The process was a beginning, and the truth is, he was a hemshech of his forebears. That's no suffix. Later he left, and then he married Mishpacha, so we became Mishpacha. So I got to know him a little better. We had a little more contact. Here and there we would talk. So I just want to say a few observations, how I felt. First, it was an interesting thing. The yeshiva had a dinner. So he was Mishpacha, and it's a Rosh Yeshiva, and it's natural to come to a dinner. No, it's to be mechazik a dinner. Rosh Shlomo was there, Zatzal. Shlomo is schwer, so I don't think he ever missed calling me afterwards, thanking me for coming. Because I mean, it's a little thing, but it's not so little. And then one time, not so long ago, a few years ago, he wasn't so well. So he asked me, would I please come and speak for the yeshiva on Hanukkah? He must have thanked me at least 3 times. He called me, then I meant to see him, we went to visit him, thanked me again and again and again. I said, I'm shouldn't gesagt. We were friendly, it was Pashut, it was Dava Pashut, not so Pashut. Not at all Pashut. I sensed the Mordechai Koris Tova if you did him a Tova. That's what it really meant. And to him it was important. So he expressed it all the time. I was not in his house so much, didn't see his relationship when he spoke about his father and with his parents, Bechlal, was Hogaret, not Shayach, going to Bianchi, who I had a shtickle contact with, well, not Shayach to Gewaldige Derech Eretz, but he told me something very unusual. I don't recall if it was after his father was Nifta when this happened. He told me, he must have been in his 40s. He said to me, you know, I never made a Seder. How many people could say a thing like that? He was in his 40s for sure, maybe more. I don't even know how old he was exactly. I don't recall if it was that then, Punkt then, but it was well in that a normal person is not doing that. So what, and Mordechai was no lemeler. He had a stark idea. This was not just simply because he was forced into any kind of situation. What does that speak about? Keep it out, keep it aimed. I'm sure the Kazakh person in his 40s didn't have a Seder, didn't make a Seder because he's got to be by his parents. To me, that was astounding. I simply want to say, afterwards we talked many times of different things, came out to talk. It was Poshet a delight to talk to him. He was, besides this, he was leading and learning, he was a gewaldige Talmud Chacham, that's a Chageret. A gewaldige Talmud Chacham, a gewaldige Geschmack, and Yankov said it exactly right. He was right on target. He was always right. Bechlal in general, he was right on target. Usually what he said was right to the Zach. But he was a gewaldige personality, and there's no subject. Whatever you talked about, it was just a geschmack to talk to him. What does he say? What's his day? What does he think? How does he feel? It was fascinating. He was really a brilliant person. And I left out, I just want to say that everybody knows, but you saw it. He had a stroke. He forged ahead and told it to me a few times. You got to keep going. You can't give up. He's not going to give up. And he sure didn't give up. That was Mesiras Nefesh Mamish. Literally Mesiras Nefesh. It was so schwer. And he kept on going. And even in the end, I didn't know exactly what he did. He was Baruch Hashem. We went to visit him. He was beful das. That was claw. His cup was his claw as always. And he was never so sick, and he's laying in bed. It was a horror, but that's the way it was, unfortunately. But he forged Keseda forward. I will miss him. I didn't have that much to do, but I will miss him. This is a very unusual person. You don't meet such a person very often. And the Hape Davis does all helping to give to the Almana, whom we know well, was a mishpacha who gave Mama, she was moist and nefesh. Her son said it clearly, had to take care of him. It was not an easy job, no question. But when we came to be Mevakachayla, you could see it. You didn't have to know anymore. Just once was enough. You looked once, you saw already the whole story. She had plenty to handle. Maybe she should give a koyach. She should have a nachama, and she'd be able to handle and forge forward and give koyach to all the children and all of the mishpacha, and the yeshiva in Yitz Hashem will continue and wax in Yitz Hashem kefi his gewaltige ruach and gewaltige koyach. Bilam ovus lanetzach.
Harav Yosef Eichenstein.
Tzali Alecha, Mordechai, Yedidi, Naam Tali Moed, Naam Tali Mordechai Yedidis. It's extremely. I came late because of traffic, so I'm sure these things were mentioned already. I mean, it was unbelievable. Loyal and dedicated friend. Every encounter that I had with him, Mitzlang Debjuran, was so refreshing. His Divrei Torah was so refreshing, as obviously was mentioned, always insightful. Almo, I mean, never said a krum of words. Came on, because of a krum of words. It was always refreshing, edifying, and Poshet, he made you feel good. Gewaltige Pikeach. When this yeshiva and this Bais Medrash appreciate, obviously we all appreciate, that the whole yeshiva was a product of his chokhmah and his creativity and his toivus ayin bring in was all the koiches that he could bring in. Chazal say koshatika machadati. Indeed, he inherited says a very venerable position, a Shiva of Novardok, but he recreated it, B'Talmud Yibnusoi, that he saw where he saw fit, and that's kosha tika b'chadati. That takes enormous talent. Chal, he was a mensch von ein Zeit. Like Imena Nili Mili, he wasn't going to rest on the laurels of his great ancestors. Imena Nili Mili. Und von zweiten Seite, schon die last me morning, like Reb Shimon and Shah Yosha, the Ani was so enormous, it was so encompassing. He took achrayas. Toivla gave Yisrael ben Urov oil Torah, and he took Bachlal, he took achrayas. When his brother, the Groise Rabban, was nifta, took achrayas for the mishpacha, took achrayas for the koil. He took achrayas to help his father, and he took achrayas. Always, he had that unbelievable sense of responsibility. I'd like to point out on the Kuda, which I was always impressed with, side of his learning. I mean, Baruch Shem Doilam at this yeshiva had an opportunity to see what's a gemein can learn in Amol. Like with what Daf Mem Zayin was just as much in his pocket as Daf Zayin. Ken Sogan Ashiaf Daf Mem Zayin, just like in Daf Zayin. And always say the Mayim Skaba, always Naya Torah. Whenever I spoke to him, always Ebsachidish and Almol Sirzach. But something that I observed in Parad Yitzchok, it says Ora that by all the Ma'aser Bereishis, it says Vayoyma Vayehi. It says by Odom, it says Nasa Odom. It says speaks about first the Machshava Nasa Odom, then Vayitza Hashem Kimas Odom of Adom of Yiprapapam Zeshbeschaim. And he said that that's because that is what Odom is. Odom is a person that the Pshat is, he's not impulsive. It's a Mlech's Machshavas. He has Machshava, he has a plan, and he executes the plan. That's the success of an Odom. That's a Mtsuas Odom. And the Mordechai has allemal given a Machshava, and the Pshat is Viazoi, how to go about whatever has to be done, whatever is called for. And the Pshat is mit his chokhmah and his pikchas, amurdike pikeach. And the Pshat is with his pikchas, the Pshat is he had a plan, and then the Pshat was set with the achrayas to execute the plan. This I saw Els Bocha, I mean, I really, saw this meter. If I remember correctly, even on Zalat Celebdik Yohan, Shlomo Kabach Zochrein Levrocha, before he did the Shidduch, he asked me, like Lenin, gewusst, I mean, he wanted to know what was it you did, if I remember correctly, I pointed out this Nakuda. Indeed, the Pshat is Staka, an Odom Godel. Odom Godel, and his pikchas, kvaldik, I mean, Chaim just said, no matter what you spoke to him about, I mean, and alles gekent. And the Pshat is, and there was a certain real anova, and the Pshat is, kemosh genad about him, was able to be makkah, the Torah Zion, makkah other people's godless. Noch einmal, naam to limoid. They was helping Taka that the Pshat is schus, sein schus von seiner Größe Abbeim, gelernt by Chaim Shmuel was kind of rocha, Barab Nochem, and he was makabel from them. He was mamish, like, makabel on a shir to makabel from Zay. And schus von sein Ovis, sein schus, which stayed for the whole mishpacha, weiter, for Hemshech, for the yeshiva, and for Doiris, I'd be a skoil tzedek, we'll most on it, we'll call Ponim.
Harav Avram Yafen.
I want to start. I'm going to ask Mechila. It's obviously very difficult for a person to be maspid father, especially Abba, who was the consummate speaker, one of the few people who really loved a good drasha. And he would remember people's bar mitzvah drashas that they gave and remind them about them many years later. Incredible zikaron. He would always push us to be able to speak whenever we can. And I'm not going to do justice, but I'm going to try. Especially Abba was a multifaceted person, a giant, not just in one nakuda, but in every area. He was in Eloi, amongst Elohim. It was like Rosh Rabbi Yankov said, learning in the Chaim Berlin Kollel at 15, and then went to the Mir, learned with Reb Nachum Bechavrusa, talking to him and learning, even though his focus was always on Pshat. You spoke to him and learning, you were awed, and at the cheshbon that was difficult came for him so easy, was just difficult to keep up. He was a visionary builder while still a bacher in his young 20s. He started the kollel in Bais Yosef in Borough Park. Ran that for many years, taking the total achrayus of the yeshiva. And then, when my Zayda was nifter, he said, we have to do more, we have to build more. He always quote from my Elta Zayda, Medaf Boy in Novardok. He was always focused on how we're going to build the yeshiva. And he came, moved the yeshiva with great difficulty, moved it to Flatbush, and was miyasad hamakom Torah here, always looking to build more, new programs in the yeshiva. He was never rested, never was content. Like Rav Moshe said, who could we bring into the yeshiva? Meidach Gisa, maybe part of the same, he was the most charismatic person. Would walk into a room, automatically, he was the center of attention. He was a people person. Every conversation had a story with a lesson. And even though we heard the story many, many times, you couldn't not listen. At a chain, would come to a shiva house, and everybody would gather around him, and he would hold court for however long he was there. Unbelievably charismatic person. And a baleitza for everyone, from Rosh Yeshivas to Bachim and Shidduchim in the yeshiva, Koil Yungalite, everybody looking for an insight. It's tremendous Bikeach, Mili D'Alma, Mili D'Shmaya. There was nothing that was out of his range. He could speak like a college professor if he wanted to, and he didn't really go through high school. It's impossible for me to be marchev on everything that he was. I want to take a few small nukudas. Feel like we're standing in his Beis Medrash. It's impossible not to mention what my brother Moshe mentioned, his Ritzcha D'Oraisa. I remember when I was young, we would go to Bais Yosef in Borough Park, and my Zeder would get up, give a drasha. 2 minutes into the drasha, Abba would start fighting with him. His passion, his fire for learning. Be learning in the Beis Medrash here. All of a sudden, he would start screaming. He would walk out of the Beis Medrash to think about something. You could, Moshe, my father used to learn over there. He would walk out of the Beis Medrash, the door would fly open. My father would come in from across the Beis Medrash. He would be screaming. The second he thought of something he couldn't hold back, he would be screaming, and the whole Beis Medrash would look, and it was nothing else that he was focused on except for whatever svara he was trying to say. And anybody who was there, and I certainly felt this when I was growing up, something that you saw him so invested, so passionate, and you wanted to be included. You wanted to be a part of it. You wanted to feel this islavus of Torah. And part of being a Talmud in this yeshiva was you got to see what it meant. He always used to say over from my Zayda would say that he doesn't see anybody who's fast shikert in learning like they were in Europe. And Abba was like that. He would think about things for hours. And he was terribly despondent at the end, like what Moshe said, when he couldn't hold cheshbon. Something so natural to him. Talking to him was mamish, living chazal, filu avu bnoi, rav talmidoi, shoysim b'toyer b'sharechod nasam oivim zeh. Was fighting with him was milchama. V'in zotzim mishom ad shenasam oivim. It's another word that he always used to say. Chazal say that there is a shidduch between Klal Yisrael and the Torah. He said, Rav Hutner asked, in every shidduch there are peiros. What are the peiros of this shidduch between Klal Yisrael and the Torah? So Rav Hutner said, Peiros HaChedushay Torah. Abba, he said, another possibility, because he felt this, he said the Peiros are the Talmidim. Would say, come to Bais Yosef, we're a full service yeshiva. Come and you learn. We'll marry you off. Be so involved. The Bachim Shidduchim. And then you'll learn in Koil. We'll take care of you. Take care of all the Yungal Light. Always say, the one thing that he has when he gets up to Shemayim, he's going to say, I was never late. If I gave a Koil check late, always gave it on time. Took the Achrayas, tremendous Achrayas, everything about the yeshiva. When he started slowing down, when the Machala started, when we had to see what type of Achrayas it was to run the yeshiva, Moshe was involved. Lo Yuman, the Achrayas that he had, he took, we didn't really understand. He's never late. Achrayas not just for the yeshiva, but for the family. So prideful of his children. And Ima would always try and push us, giving us confidence, pushing us to be the best we could be. The biggest thing that we see was always his strength of character. Nothing could get in his way. Wanted to move the yeshiva. There were obstacles. Nothing stopped him. Came here. Nothing would stop him from recruiting. Every person he knew, when it came to shidduchim for his children, he'd call up everybody, leave no stone unturned. There's nothing that he wouldn't do. Nothing could get in his way. He's a tremendous optimist. Everything was going to turn out okay. Everything was going to be good. I have no doubt as he goes up to Shemayim, he's going to be a Melech Yosher for Ima, who didn't leave his side for 2 years. Took over a job that should have been a job for the whole family. She tried to do it as much as she could herself. He's going to be a Melech Yosher for his children. Who he would take care of, make sure we were taken care of. Making lists as he was getting sicker, again and again. Make sure everything was going to be taken care of course, for a second family, for the yeshiva. And lastly, just so Moshe said it, Klolos, and there are probably much more people who the family wants to be Makar Tov to. But just for a few of the doctors that were literally there every step of the way to be Makar Tov, to Dr. Gelbfish, literally, because of his determination to get my father a heart procedure, extended his life for months. Dr. Friedman, who was always there when we needed him, Dr. Alport, for myself personally, Dr. Minkowitz was always there whenever I had a question. My sister-in-law, Dr. Chana Neuberger, was also my go-to person when we needed And as Moshe said, one thing Abba taught us also, always to be Makar Tov. So thank you on behalf of the family. Again, ask Mechila for Abba. We certainly could not possibly have been Mechabed you the way we should have. Bila Mavas Netzach, Moshe Hashem, Elkim Dimel Me'al Kopanim.
Harav Yitzchak Lichtenstein.
Since tonight is Rosh Chodesh, I want to speak a little bit more in general terms. Mordechai was in Novardok. Novardok in his bones. Not so much in the chelik hamusar, more in the chelik of the koiches hanefesh, of the avos Torah, of the boyin Torah. So I want to talk a little bit more about what Novardok, what it meant, Novardok, Mimela, and Verstehen, der Mordechai. Really, the Rebbe from Novardok mit Avkuk and Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu fought the world. Avraham Avinu came to the Akara, wie der Rambam sagt, zu da Ribono Shel Olam auf der Welt. And Avraham Avinu, Kevin Sheikar is Boiroi, he started spreading the word of the Ribono Shel Olam in the world, and nothing stopped him. He didn't care if the ganze Welt is ein Koifrim, made no difference to him, whether it made sense to be able to convince the ganze Welt, or it didn't make sense, because the Taka didn't make sense, as ein Mensch can überkehren the ganze Welt. It's not a dover sichli, but for Avraham Avinu, it didn't make a difference. He didn't chap any spilus from the world. He just went on and on. But it got as avos Torah. The Rambam says, which says Avraham begayres ha'anoshim v'sorim begayres ha'anoshim came from avos Torah. The pasuk describes Avraham Avinu as zera Avraham oihavi. The avos Torah from Avraham Avinu, when azay grois, that Avraham Avinu, he couldn't contain himself. He saw mention that were koifrim, and he pushed it. He couldn't contain himself. He had to go and explain to them and tell them about the Ribono Shel Olam and hak steiner and hak. And eventually, tzebislach, mahak steiner. And eventually, Avraham Avinu started succeeding, and he brought the Ribono Shel Olam from being Elokei Hashamayim to being Elokei Haaretz. Another koyach that Avraham Avinu had, the Gemara sagt, Matbeya shel Avraham Avinu zokin uskena mitzad echad, and yeled v'yalda mitzad acher. Avraham Avinu had a coin. Tosfos explains, because the Kodesh Baruch Hu promised him sheyetze moinitin shelcha ba'olam, which means to have a coin. The coin of Avraham Avinu on one side was zokin uskena, on the other side yeled v'yalda. Rashi says, Zokin v'skein is Avram v'sora, Yeled v'yalda is Yitzchak v'Rivka. My Zayda said a pshat, said, Efshir kem zogen, that it's a zelba Avram. In Avram Avinu would gelegen a Zokin v'skeina and a Yeled v'yalda. Said, in order for Avram Avinu to be able to come and do what he did, Avram Avinu had to have the youthfulness. He had to have the vigor of a young person. He had to have the tmimis. He had to have the koiches hanefesh that a young person has. Avraham Avinu was zaken. He had the cook from the alte mensch. He had the life experience. He had the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He had everything else Avraham zaken. But zusammen mit der zaken uskene gven a yeled v'yaldo. So gven Avraham Avinu had the gewaldike koiches hanefesh that nothing will stop him. Everything came as a child, as a young person who was full of koiches hanefesh that just wanted to do more and more. And that's how Avraham Avinu was able to accomplish. Another nekudi that Avraham Avinu had, the pasuk tells us, Avraham hoiledes Yitzchak, Chazal tell us, shoya zivi kunin shaloi, doimel zivi kunin shel Avraham. There are two things. Pasuk says that Avraham Oiledus Yitzchak and Rashi's Masbir that Leitzani Ador said Me'avimelech Nisabu Sora HaKadosh Baruch Hu tzor cluster upon of Shel Yitzchak, he should look like Avraham Avinu. That was facial expressions. Yitzchak's face looked like Avraham. But besides that, given Nochazach, we know that Yosef HaTzadik had it. Avraham Avinu had a Ziv Ikunin. Eliezer Ziv Ikunin, Zogan Chazal, was doimet to Avraham. A Ziv Ikunin, the Kliyoker is Masber in Parshas Vayeshev, it means a certain shine, a certain charisma, a certain ruchnius of Chochmas Odom Torah Ponov. A certain ruchnius that attracted people to Avraham Avinu. When they were with Avraham Avinu, they felt the Rebbeinu Shel Olam. They saw the Chochma, the Kedusha that radiated from Avraham Avinu. All that gave Avraham Avinu the ability to be able to accomplish and turn over the world. Novardok followed this model, the model of not being mispoiled from the world, the model of taking a few bachim in a shtot in Europe, on geld, on essen, on gornish, to start a yeshiva. It was keneged ha-seichel, didn't make any sense. But they succeeded. Why? Weil sie gewen azah brenn von Avos HaTorah, that mimela nothing stopped them. There was a gewaltige chochmas odem Torah ponov, that they just had such charisma and such action that mimela they were matzliach. This is the Beis Medrash from Vureb Mordechai gekommen, from Novardok, from these koiches hanefesh, from koiches hanefesh of Ad Ein Soif and Ad Ein Shir. As we mentioned before, the pasuk zogt Avram, the Rashi zogt Avram and Yitzchak was on one side of the coin, and Yitzchak and Rivka was on the other side of the coin. The Vil Weisen Asidah Hemshich. There's a continuation to Avram Avinu. The Plishtim thought when Avraham Avinu died, it's going to be all over. It's finished. Avraham Avinu is a one-time phenomenon. And that's why when Avraham Avinu died, Sitnum Plishtim, Achi Mois Avraham, Zogt Rabbeinu B'chaya, that the fight over the Be'eris represents Kedusha, Avodas Hashem, Yiras Hashem. Sitnum Plishtim is Kfira, Afri Lepumayo. They thought Avraham Avinu is not here. We're going to finish off Genug mit Avraham Avinu. Gekommen Yitzchak. And Yitzchak had gesagt, nein, Vayikral and Shemus, Ka Shemus Hashem Korel and Oviv. Sie geht weiter, Avraham Avinu is not over. Avraham Avinu will continue. The Zelbe Kedusha, the Zelbe Mahalach. Reb Mordechai had gelost kinder, had gelost a yeshiva, who are going to continue the yeshiva with the Zelbe Mahalach, with the Zelbe Bren, with the Zelbe Novardokkeit, that nothing will stop them to continue and be Marbitz Torah and to bring Kedusha to the world. Reb Mordechai, Tzar li olecha, not li moit. Tzayt me moichel. We worked together for close to 2 years. You treated me like a son, like a brother, like a Zayda. I never had somebody who treated me so nicely. Please, if I didn't treat you properly,
Harav Michal Sorotskin.
Evan Mikir Tizok V'chofis Me'etz Ya'aneno. Coming again to this Besmedrash, the seat of Mordechai, to the bime where he used to stand with the stecken Muchen Zachav Rab Kiveger. The Sforim, the Ksovim, the Shir, the Daige. Und Mordechai nicht da. I was able to be together with Reb Shlomo Wolbe visiting by the Pachad Yitzchok, Reb Yitzchok Hutner, 36 hours prior to his P'tira. It was in Yerushalayim HaKodesh. We walked into the room, and the Rosh and Oizgizen, he looked as if he's a shadow of himself. There's blood gushing out of his mouth. Rav Wolbe said a kapitel Tilim. Then Rav Hutner opens up his eyes and he says, Reb Shloime, Reb Shloime. Koil Godel V'lo Yosef. Reb Shloime turned around to him and asked him, Was macht der Rosh Yeshiva? It took a minute or two. He said 2 words. Isurim, Isurim. And then he started smiling. So Rav Wolbe, in his own style, says, Oib der Rosh Yeshiva hat Isurim, warum schmeichelt der Rosh Yeshiva? Why is the Rosh Yeshiva smiling if he has Isur? Rav Hutner opened his eyes and he said, Ikuni Ptsauni steht euch in Shir HaShirim. The Rosh Yeshiva Agoran Reb Moshe Shlita spoke about the Shemrim HaSevivim Esayir. Reb Mordechai was a living example of Ikuni Ptsauni, but the Song of Songs, the Shiras HaTorah, the Gishmakkeit, the Ibergegebenkeit. Such a Simchas HaChaim walking back and forth of a year, b'milchamto shel Torah, with his choshev kinder, one after the other, with such a personal daige to each and every one of them, with such a love and devotion to every bocher and every younger man. Mit den Reden, everybody is going to speak about his goyiness, about his kishreines, about his omalatere, von Kind Vaison. But such a Simchas HaChaim, such a song, you cannot stop the song. Mit Isurim, with a 1 stroke, a 2nd stroke, and then later on, just came to see him not long ago in the house. He couldn't talk, he couldn't breathe. Aber er gesagt, ich gesagt, dat Herz auf Minchas Chinuch, das hat ihm gebrannt im Beiner. They don't make this model anymore. The Gemara in Menachos. Gemara in Menachos in Daf Samachdal with Bais, the Mishnah says, during the Tkuf of Beis Chashmoinoi, there was a fight between 2 brothers, Horkenus and Aristobulus. They couldn't bring the Oimer and the Shtei Alechem min HaKorev. They had to bring it from the Rochik. Maise vebo ha'oimer miganois tzrifim. They didn't know where to bring it from. So given dort nach Cheresh, Rashi said, he was a Cheresh, he was Shemeya ve'eino medaber. He put 1 hand on the gag, auf dem Dach, and 1 hand auf dem Tzrif. And sie gestane dort Mordechai. So machlekes Rashi and Tesis if it's the same Mordechai Yehudi, or it was a different Mordechai, was called, all the Mordechai were called on the name of Yene Mordechai. And he says, find out, is there a place called Ganos Tzrifim or Tzrifim Gagois? And they found the Oimer there. The story repeats itself. They didn't know where to bring Shtei Alechem from. Came the Zelbe Cheresh, and he put 1 hand on his eye, and 1 hand on his Seicher, on the Mafteach, on the Mezuzah Bais. Zog the Gemara, Omar Leye Mordechai, is there a place called Ein Seicher or Seicher Ein? Motzu, and they brought the Shtei Alechem. 3rd story the Gemara brings. 3 women came to bring korbanos. One of them said leZivasi, one of them said leYamosi, one of them said leOinosi. And everybody interpreted that they were Yoldas, and they had to bring a kan, echod lechatos ve'echod le'oilo. Till Mordechai came and said, no, there's a different meaning. One of them was a Mesukenes. One of them was Nistakno Bezoiv. One of them was Nistakno Beyam. And one of them was Nistakno Be'ayin. They don't bring Chatas and Oilo. They bring only a korban oila to thank for the nays they had. Zog the Gemara, Lomo Nikro, this is, the Mishnah in Kinim says, Psachio, Yerushalmi Shteit Nishkolim, was Memune al Akinim. And why was his name Psachio? Shepoiseach dvorim v'doyer shoim v'yodea b'shivim loshen. Psachye is Mordechai. Teisim Babakami actually says that it wasn't the same Mordechai, but every Mordechai had this phenomenal tchunas hanefesh. He knew how to listen to a cherish. He knew how to interpret shivim loshen in the Gemara state Sanhedrin, tzrichim shiyubkim b'shivim loshen, but only one or two people in the Sanhedrin. Mordechai is the one who could listen to a cherish. Mordechai mon he could take, but nobody could understand. Mordechai understands. How many chershim? Wie blinde, wie chershim? And I don't mean physical chershim. It's people that didn't have any avon in Torah. Psachye zemotche, he was opening up. And you can't FNN. Shepoiseach dvorim. Nei, sie nicht kin chatas in oilo. These women don't have to bring a chatos. It's a oilo, it's a blois on a dove. This is the Mordechai. The Mordechai who had the kishren to take Amerikaner bocher. Was hat keinmal nicht geschmeckt. The Torah von Lite und gib mir mal Geschmack in Akzeis, a Geschmack in Yeshivas, a dreh mit der Finger and everything with a schmeichel, mit a gewaltige Anverschein, with humility, without making anything out of himself. And the Kodesh Baruch Hu helped him to build an empire of Torah for decades and decades. I want to say one thing to Mishpachas Novardok, I was part of it, and to the Kinder and to the Choshever Rebbetzin. Vatoimer lo hameyaledes al tiri ki gam ze lach ben. Vatikro shmoi ben oini ve'oviv koroloi ben yomin. Stel zich voor. Rochel Imeinu is giving birth. She's 37 years of age. She's not going to nurse the baby because she's dying on her birth-giving bed. Vatikra Shmoi, she would love to give her son a name. Comes Yankov Avinu and said, you called her Ben Oini? No, I'm going to call him Binyamin. Yankov is given Bechira Merkova. Vayeyav Yankov is Rochel. Her father wants to give a name, the mother wants to give a name. But you have such a tragedy. A young woman suffered all her life. She's giving birth to her son, and she cannot do anything more. She's not going to be there, not by the breast, and not to feed him, and not to nurse him. And what is she asking? Get me, this minimal courtesy should be bestowed upon me. Give a name. No, comes again, Yankov Avinu, get a clap. You want this name? No, the name is going to be Binyamin. The Teretz is, Ben Oini, Zogt Rashi, Oini is Tsari, Kemoi lo yochalti be'oini mimenu. Oinen, Aninus, Avelus. Yankov Avinu, Zogt der Ramban, took the same word, but he swapped it. He says, not Ben Oini ben Tsari, but Oini miloshen koyach. Reishis Oini, Reishis HaKoyach. The Tzad Yamin, ki boya gevuro, boya atzloch. Not Ben Oini, you cannot perpetuate tragedies. Rochel Imeinu, at that time of death, she was perpetuating her own Avelis, Ben Tsari, Ben Evli. But we know that 3 days for B'chi, Zayin la'aveil shloishim yoim, Gzeira she'ameis mishtakach min alev yud beis chodesh. Yankov Avinu in his vision understood we cannot perpetuate the tragedy. This name was the Gatze Sugyas Agmor in Soite, mit noch avot, noch a letter, another letter on the Choshen for the Shvotim. Ve'ov, he took the Oini, he took the Tsari, he converted the Oin from the Aninus to the Oin to the Koyach. Reb Moshe, the Rosh Yeshiva Shlita, with his Choshever brothers, Reb Avrom, Reb Meir Simcha, and the ganze Mishpacha from Mishpachas Novardok. I'm telling you what your father would say. Mit sein Schmeichel, mit sein Kishre. We do not perpetuate tragedies. It's not vatoimer lo ameyaledes al tiri ki gam ze loch ben. There is a son, there is a continuation. Novardok will continue to flourish under the hanhoge of the sons, under the hanhoge of the mishpachas hameluche, which are carrying this legacy, this heritage, midoire doires. Al tiri ki gam ze loch ben.
Harav Meir Yafen.
Abba, you always stress the importance of Hakaras HaTov. Now it's our time to be Makatov to you. We don't have enough time to convey our appreciation, and words cannot capture our profound gratitude for the love, devotion, and Mesiras Nefesh you had for your family and for your children. Ilu finu mali shira kayom, eina nachnu maspikim laides lecha. Personally, I had a uniquely close relationship with you, Abba. I was your Ben Zekunim. You affectionately referred to me as your Einikel. You spoiled me like a grandfather would to his grandson. You never wanted to say no to me. You didn't want any of your children to worry about anything. We would tell you any problem that we were facing, we were going through, and you would take any worry onto your own shoulders. You were our guardian angel. You were a Gadol in so many ways. A Gadol b'Torah, a giant in kindness, chesed, tzedakah. Your Simchas HaChaim was remarkable in every area of your life. You loved your family so much. Your friends, your Yeshiva, and your Talmidim who you treasured. You were eternally optimistic, always focusing on the positive in every situation. You had a tremendous ayin tov, believing in others, oftentimes more than they believed in themselves. Your love of life combined with your brilliant mind, your charismatic, magnetic personality, made you so much larger than life, and no hesped could do you justice. Svarim say, when a person comes before the Kisei HaKavod on the Yom Adin, they ask you, what's your name? But in front of the Yodei Talumos, a person cannot utter his name, he can't remember his name. Only be able to recite the pasuk that represents your name, that we say at the end of Shemona Esrei. The pasuk that represented Abba's name, that he said every day, was Ma hafti Torasecha kol hayomi sichasi. It's the perfect representation of who he was. Abba, your love of Torah was boundless, illuminating every aspect of your life. Your love of Torah was infectious, showing that a life of Torah is a life of purpose and a life of joy. And it was your love of Torah that you laid as the foundation for this yeshiva. I had the schos of learning with you, Abba, every morning, chavrusa here in the yeshiva. And once Abba was sick and he had the machla, I would go to his house every night and we would try to prepare the shurim together. And I saw a master at work, creating the most brilliant chidushei Torah I'd ever heard. The nature of our entire relationship is that you were the teacher, the mentor, the mashpia, leading by example. You would challenge me, you would nurture me, you would guide me. And now, it's our responsibility and it's our privilege to carry on your legacy, Abba. To continue on as Talmidim, to learn from him and draw from his limitless Abba Satayra, and use that as the roadmap for our lives. My mother requested that we keep any mention of her very brief. I want to thank you, Ima, for your tireless devotion for Abba. You didn't leave his side for the last 2 years. When the doctors gave Abba the bleak prognosis, they didn't factor in the level of care, the level of dedication that Ima was going to provide. And that, combined and coupled with Abba's resilient fighting spirit, caused Abba to far surpass all of the expectations. I want to end by asking Abba Mechila for all the times it was Pegea and his covet. I love you so much, Abba. I hope you'll be Michael. Should be a Melitz Yasher for the entire family, your children, your grandchildren, for Ima, for your Talmidim, for Ganz Klal Yisrael. We're going
to need to ask everybody from this side of the Beis Medrash to please go out. We cannot move the Aron until this whole entire side of the Beis Medrash is empty. So please, orderly, please everybody, please stand up and go out. We were going to be walking up Avenue N. So please, stay outside. There's water next door by the driveway. There's garbage cans of water. You can wash over there. Wait a minute. Let them clear out.
You see him already?
No.
We're going to have to send out something about when the Levayas and Eretz Yisrael. Those people are asking. People that are
At 9 o'clock in the around in the koil in the Slum.
9 o'clock.
On Rechov Slanim in the koil there.
9 o'clock. Can we please continue going out? The Aaron needs to get to the airport. Please. The Levaya is going to be in Rechav Slonim in the Kailel, 9 o'clock Israeli time. Huh? No, I'm not going to Israel. No, it's an Israel. Everybody on this side of the base measures can stay. Just let's empty out the other side. The people who are carrying the Aron on the way up, if they can please come to the front, to the Aron. Please do not follow right behind the Aron until we're outside. There's a lot of turns that have to be made. Ready yet? What? Who?
Going to this one?
Right here. All four of them right here. Ready? Ready to go? Make another announcement?
This is Tavis. Give it another minute. People go up. They go.
Just slowly following in.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
What? We have to Mayor, Abram, you guys should go first. Where's Abram?
He's already there. He's already there.
Okay, fine. Abram, you should go. Mike should.
Beautiful.
What? Who said 9:30? You just spoke to who?
Where is
9:30 in the mirror? You sure? Because that's not what Mike should do. 9:30 in the mirror is going to be the Levaya. In Eretz Yisrael.
Tell them to just not on the steps yet, go after the ark. Steps on, please.
Whoever is not on the steps, please go after the Aron. Please, nobody else go down the steps anymore.
Schafft er vor.